now to Kenya, where within the past few hours, President William Ruto has announced the scrapping of a hugely unpopular finance bill. The bill was going to introduce new taxes, but after huge protests across the country, Mr. Ruto said he would not sign the bill into law and also pledged austerity measures to reduce his own office's expenditure. The decision was made after police opened fire on protesters in Nairobi. The Parliament building was set on fire during the demonstrations, and doctors say more than 20 people were killed. President Ruto said the people had spoken and he was listening keenly to them.
Consequently, having reflected on the continuing conversation around the content of the Finance Bill 2024, and listening keenly to the people of Kenya, who have said loudly that they want nothing to do with this Finance Bill 2024, I concede, and therefore I will not sign the 2024 Finance Bill, and it shall subsequently be withdrawn, and I have agreed with these members that that becomes our collective position.
President William Ruto there. Well, for more on this development, I'm joined on the line from Nairobi, Kenya, by Arise Africa correspondent Mark Bichachi. Good to see you, Mark. The president of Kenya there, William Ruto, addressed the nation earlier today, and he withdrew that finance bill, which is a big climb down from the defiant tone he struck yesterday. Tell us more about what he said.
Well, what he basically said is that he has listened to the people and he's going to withdraw the bill. Now, this is a huge climb down, but many are speculating that it was necessitated by the fact that his desire to deploy the army was not met, given that the courts ruled against it, and sources are saying that the army itself said that it would be unconstitutional for them to obey such an order. So really, he did not have any force to be able to continue to keep his defiant tone, as it were, yesterday. So his statement today became more almost like a campaign speech towards the end, where he was trying to showcase what he's done for the young people, whilst promising to have a conversation with them about the budget that is supposed to be reworked. However, unfortunately, the people of Kenya, if you look at social media and the sentiment on the ground, is that people are still saying that they're going to go back to demonstrate tomorrow, because it is now no longer about the finance bill. It is now apparently, according to some, about getting President Ruto to exit office so that they can have a fresh leadership. Now, whether this will happen or not depends on whether the demonstrations actually kick off tomorrow.
But, I mean, at the very least, Mark, in the short term, this must count, as I think you mentioned this, as a significant victory for the protesters. And beyond the fact that you mentioned that they may go back on the streets tomorrow, what is the mood like now in Nairobi following that announcement by President Ruto?
Well, things have calmed down significantly because, remember, Charles, last night there were reports that in Githurai, which is a section of Nairobi, which is the capital city, there were police being accused of shooting individuals indiscriminately. Some say up to 30 people were killed in that particular incident. So Nairobi now is calm, given that the fact that citizens are assured that the government is not going to be deploying the army and is not going to be shooting them. The president did promise that he will take accountability for those who lost their lives, saying that there were 6, but doctors and other sources are saying that probably the number is much closer to 70 people dead. So it is definitely a more calm Nairobi tonight. People are not afraid of the police anymore, but the speculation is really, and this is where people are asking whether the president will actually keep his word. That is number one. And then number two, whether these young people will go back to the streets and ask for the president to step down.
This suggests, does it not, a measure of flexibility going forward, and that the government has heard that there is real anger spread across the whole of Kenya about these proposed tax rises and a lot of other things?
Yes, indeed, it is a tacit nod towards the protesters. It is quite for them a recognition and a victory for them, really, in terms of being able to have the bill being withdrawn. But the anger is still palpable. Many citizens are still angry at the president. It is still early days. I cannot say for sure whether what he has done right now is enough to quell the anger that the people are feeling. But he's definitely under pressure, given that soon after that, the deputy president himself also came up to give a press conference to assure the country that the president did not know that the public was so angry, and to put the blame on the National Intelligence Service. So it is still a developing story. The issues still quite fresh, and we are still waiting to see what the president is going to do, because he has promised many sweeping changes. He has said that he's going to create different points of conversation with the people of Kenya. So it is developing both on the side of the government as well as the side of the public.
And President Ruto also talked about those debt obligations. What is your assessment about just how much the government's hands are tied by those debt obligations? Because, I mean, there seems to be a lot of anger in Kenya directed towards the IMF and the World Bank.
Well, the belief is that this raft of tax changes from last year to this year were brought about because of the IMF and the World Bank. That is number one. Number two, many Kenyans believe that the debts that Kenya has recently incurred were brought on because of these new taxes. At the same time, many Kenyans are saying that they should not be taxed more when they can see the president spending so much money on the State House. So, for example, they point out that the president has increased the State House budget from 1 billion Kenya shillings, which is about 10 million US dollars, all the way to about 50 million US dollars. And that's what Kenyans are complaining about. So they're saying that how can you say you need to tax us more when we are seeing you live in luxury, which is why the president also had to address and say that he's going to reduce this expenditure in State House. He's going to reduce his travels, which now are nearing almost 100 travels outside the country in just under 2 years, which is a record really, in because both presidents before him combined over the 10-year rule did not really fly as much as he had. So he had to really promise Kenyans that he's going to reduce the cost. So the anger is not just about the debt. It is about how the money is being spent and how President William Ruto is accused of largesse in his own office and that of his spouse and the deputy president's spouse.
Mark, thanks very much indeed. Mark Bichachi is Arise Africa correspondent. He was talking to me on the line there from Nairobi, Kenya.